What is the freakiest/creepiest thing that's ever happened to you? Serious. I had a roommate who was always a complete. Never was polite or kind to anyone. One night after I helped his drunk to bed, he turned to me and said, "I really appreciate you, and I know you don't like seeing me like this. You've been a good roommate and friend, thank you." I found him dead the next morning due to an undiagnosed heart condition that alcohol had amplified. Not creepy or freaky in the normal sense, but I will never forget how serious and genuine he was in his last words spoken ever. It was the first time I had ever heard him compliment anyone. For 2 years, I had a roommate who was on meds for psychosis. It was me, him, and another guy. He was fine but a little weird. Me and the other dude always made sure to include him in stuff because we didn't want him to feel isolated and possibly worsen his mental state. He never blew up or anything like that, just a quiet and awkward guy. He was not a drinker. The three of us would go to the pub, but he never had more than 1 beer. He'd spend the night stoically listening to our nonsense, sometimes chiming in. But this night was a little different. That day he seemed really chipper, much happier than ever before. Not manic or anything, just positive and energetic. When I came home from work, he was chatting with the other roommate and was cracking jokes. We go out to the pub and I get uneasy because he downs his first beer and asks for another, the very first time he has more than one. After he finished his second beer, I took the other roommate aside and we decided to just keep an eye on it. He was having a blast, we didn't want to ruin his fun. He was having more fun than we've ever seen and it looked like his whole mindset was turning in a positive direction. Eventually we were all 8 pints in. This was irresponsible of us, we had never seen him drunk before and had no way of knowing how he handled alcohol. Surprisingly, he was fine. He hit on a few girls and got some interest in return, we had never even seen him talk to a girl before. When he came back we just had to ask him, "Why are you so happy today?" He said he got some good news, that his father passed away. We put it together that he didn't have the best relationship with his dad. He went into all the abuse he's experienced growing up, how he'd watch his dad beat his mom and little sister, powerless to stop him, or how he'd get tied up in the freezing garage for entire nights as punishment for tiny infractions, just awful stuff. We did a cheers to this because it looked like he was starting to find meaning in life after his abuser was gone. One morning, 2 days later, he was arrested. That day he was so happy, he drove 2 hours back to his hometown and bashed his dad's head in. The worst part is everyone come out to say, on Facebook, that the abuse never happened, including his mom and sister, because he was apparently saying these things to the police. The story made some waves in our state as well, with the court concluding that the abuse probably didn't happen. Edit, confusing wording, possibly. We went to the pub the evening after he did the deed. He drove out that morning and came back before I got back from work. I worked at a subway during a period of time where a serial robber was hitting multiple subways each day, and becoming violent. I worked at a particular subway that was the easiest target of them all. One employee at night, not in a shopping center, off from the main road, small parking lot covered with trees. The cops would actually come check on me at night due to how sure they were this dude was gonna rob it. One night a guy came in and started fidgeting with the front door, he said he thought something was wrong with it, but then said it was fine. The guy was really nice the whole time, but started asking some odd questions about what time I get out with all the robberies happening. I felt it was odd, and lied saying I left later than I did. Later that night I arm the alarm and go to close the door but it won't close at all, the alarm goes off, cops fly in the parking lot. One cop starts looking at the door and finds a really small magnet that stopped the door from closing. He placed it there so I couldn't close the door. During this time a car rolls by slowly, but everyone wrote it off as someone thinking it got robbed. A couple days later they catch him and it's that dude. I see footage of his car, and it was the car that drove by while I was still with the cop. I've told this story before but it is still by far the creepiest thing to happen to me. When I was 16 I had just gotten my license as well as my first after-school job. Since school ended about an hour before I had to be at work, I would sometimes park in the adjacent parking lot and take a nap. This was a shopping strip with a grocery store, restaurants, and a bank on a fairly busy Friday afternoon. As I'm sitting there drifting off I see a black Denali pull up behind me blocking my car in the spot. A gentleman jumps out in a business suit and asks if I can help him. He looks nice enough, and I'm assuming he is looking for directions. He starts to explain to me that his wife and he were supposed to be signing for a loan at the bank behind us today, so that they can purchase a boat, but she is stuck in a meeting and can't make it. He then asks if I wouldn't mind posing as her and singing the documents for her. I'm completely blown away, but super shy and feel the need to let him down easy. Stupid, I know. So I tell him I don't think they'll believe I am your wife. He then tells me it's fine, he has her license with him, which he shows me, and she has the same hair/eye color as me, so they won't know. At this point I'm freaking out. I start to notice how disheveled he looks, he's sweating, and surprise, no wedding ring. I just want him away from my car, so I start telling him I can't help him, that he needs to go ask someone else. He says it's fine, it'll be quick, just jump in my truck and I'll take you over there. Like I said, this bank was in the same shopping strip, there would be no need to drive to it. Even in my gullible teenage mind I know this story is complete bull. I'm telling him no over and over, while scanning the parking lot for anyone who might be noticing, but of course no one has. He then starts getting irate, telling me that I'm perfect and the only one who can do it, how beautiful I am, can he at least take me to dinner, and so on. I start trying to close my window and he reaches through, grabs my shoulder and starts trying the door handle, which was luckily locked. I'm so frozen I don't even really react, I can't go anywhere as he's blocking me in. Suddenly, and I'm not really sure why, I just blurt out that I'm only 16, and for some reason that freaks him out. He slowly backs away, gets in his truck, and leaves. I called the police afterwards but they never followed up with me. But I just know he had found that license and made up that story as a way to lure women into his truck, and it scared the hell out of me that he could have convinced someone before. Years later I spotted him on the offender registry for uneasy face. I was about 10 and I had a huge fear of someone being in my house, to the point where I wouldn't go to the basement because it scared me. But I am glad I had that fear, because one day during the summer I was trying to go to sleep and I heard a noise from above me, and I freaked out. I then noticed over the coming days that my room was really hot, and I thought this was strange because we just got new air vents put in. My dad was checking them out and went to get some sort of tool, when I saw the scariest image possible. There was a skinny man looking at me and my dad from the vent in my ceiling. I froze and pretended not to notice him, and I went to get my dad, and me in my 10-year-old mind was instantly thinking run with him out of the house, but I have 2 cats and were scared to leave them, so I grabbed a paper towel and a pen and wrote in my chicken scratch handwriting, "There is a man in my vent," but he couldn't read it, and asked what it meant, and that's when we heard a thud, and he looked at it again and must have put it together, because he grabbed me and called the police. When my mom got home she got to see the man being dragged out of the house in cuffs. Even though he was caught and I still had a somewhat happy ending, the image of looking up and seeing his face, and being so petrified I couldn't move or scream still haunts me. My cousin and I were probably targeted for a scam, but I still don't know how or why. We are 6 years apart, but went to the same high school at different times. Small school, graduating class is about 60. Years later, we are on a road trip together several states away, and decide to stop at a Huddle House for coffee. We walk in, and the guy at the next table turns around and smiles and says, "You went to Enitown High School, right?" When we say yes, he says he and his girlfriend, also at the table, smiling and not talking, went there too. We didn't recognize them, but smiled politely, commented it was a small world. He starts to rapidly talk about different things from the school, just disjointed comments that were a bit odd. He talked like a salesman, almost. At first, we smile and nod, but he had weird facts wrong. So we ask what year he graduated. He claimed not to remember. So we asked follow-up questions and he gets cagey. Suddenly the girlfriend OES this isn't working and they suddenly pay and leave, food untouched. We since have determined they didn't go to our school, and have tried to figure out how he knew what he did, to no avail. Edit, because I got some questions, neither my cousin nor I lived in my hometown by this point, the car wasn't bought in our hometown and didn't have any stickers etc., from there. The guy had just enough facts correct, 1 or 2 teachers' names, and a diner across the street, totally off the cuff that we really questioned it afterwards.